Now learning that a man found with ammo at President Trump's California Golf Club was also carrying a public telephone number for the White House. Now, federal prosecutors also say the man's truck parked in the club lot had a loaded 9mm as well. So now the Secret Service is trying to figure out whether 38-year-old Janine John Tale posed a threat to the president, according to a source. Now, Tale is scheduled in court this afternoon. He's also facing state weapons charges. He was arrested at the Trump National Club 2 days before the president's visit there. And the Justice Department says Tale was seen on the property wearing an earpiece while taking pictures and videos of federal agents doing security preps. Now, investigators say his truck also contained a badge reading security protection agent, and they found more weapons, ammunition, as well as body armor at his home. So I want to talk about this case with Donnell Harvin, the former head of Homeland Security and Intelligence for Washington, D.C. He's also a member of the faculty at Georgetown University Emergency and Disaster Management. I just want to start with, look, we laid out a lot of those details that we understand from investigators at this point. How will Secret Service determine whether the man actually posed a threat to President Trump?
Yeah, Omar. So right now they're, I'm sure, executing warrants. Any storage units or any locations that's affiliated with this individual. They're interviewing family members, friends. They're also looking at his social media footprint, which is common, and looking to see if there's any history of violence or threats against the president or other members of the cabinet. And so this will be an extensive interview and interrogation process, as well as an investigative process that they may very well up the charges, the federal charges, if they come up with information that's derogatory that shows that this individual had malintent towards the president in terms of trying to assassinate him.
And, you know, it's one thing in terms of what was found on his body, as we understand from investigators or at the scene. But I wonder what you make of investigators saying they recovered from the man's home an illegally modified rifle, body armor, high-capacity magazines, and notebooks containing, quote, concerning statements. Does that add anything to the picture of what they may have found on scene?
For me, it does. It's clearly not a smoking gun, pun not intended. But it shows that this individual has weapons. They're being a little cagey and not giving out information about the writings, and that's appropriate at this point in the investigation. You don't want to tip off any accomplices or anybody else who may be watching us talk about this right now on television. They know a lot more than they're releasing, and that's appropriate because they may have to run down other individuals if this individual is not acting as a lone actor. Now, historically, we've seen these attempts or these foil plots as lone actors, but they can't take anything for granted. I do want to mention, Omar, in this heightened environment, if this was a credible threat and if Donald Trump was targeted, this would be an unprecedented fourth attempt on one standing leader's life. If you go back to Butler, you go back to the Mar-a-Lago attempt, and if you include the White House Correspondents' Dinner attempt that's still being litigated in court. We've never seen anything like this before, and so investigators are doing their due diligence to make sure that they have all the facts and they're able to present it in court when the day comes.
Yeah, and investigators, as you mentioned, still working through this case in particular. But you mentioned the previous Mar-a-Lago one. Remember, Ryan Ruth was sentenced to life in prison for the attempted assassination of the president there on the edge of Trump's West Palm Beach golf course in Florida. And you look at the setting here, also proximate to a golf course. Just from a security standpoint, how difficult is it to actually secure something like this where, you know, if you play golf, you know there are many, many different ways to get onto a course?
Conventionally speaking, it's super difficult, but when you're the president of the United States and you have the best protective detail in the world, it's more complex for them, but it's very doable. I'll tell you that this individual was interdicted or stopped because of something that we do know that attacks or assailants do, which is pre-operational or pre-attack surveillance. They'll go and case out a location days before, and that's what we teach law enforcement and security is the best time to catch these individuals when you see someone doing something suspicious. So he was there days before, taking video allegedly, filming allegedly, and that's the time that you can see individuals who are not acting appropriately. There's some behavioral analysis that goes into there. And so from my standpoint, everything happened as it should have. The president wasn't even, wheels down when this happened. And so it's just another tool in the toolkit, what we call counter surveillance, that happens before the president touches ground, especially in an open air environment like a golf club.
Donnell Harvin, really appreciate the insight as we follow this developing story. Thanks for being here.
A man arrested outside the president's golf course in Southern California is expected to be in court today. This all happened Sunday, but we're really only learning about it now. The suspect is 38-year-old Janine John Tail. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department said that he was arrested after federal agents reported a suspicious person walking the property, and he was found wearing an earpiece and taking photos and videos of the grounds. They say they later found a loaded pistol, ammo, and binoculars in his truck. President Trump was on his way to California last night to speak at an RNC event when this arrest was announced. Joining me right now is CNN senior law enforcement analyst Andrew McCabe for much more on this. He's going to be back in court. It seems that they have a lot of investigative material under their belt already, though. What questions do you have, Andy?
Yeah, Kate, well, the big question here is, what was this guy doing, right? So he's been arrested on firearms violations, both at the federal and state level. Those charges seem to be very strong. They've got great evidence to work with, the prosecutors do. But the bigger question is here is, did this person, were they intending to bring any harm to the president of the United States? And in order to answer that question, you can see from the complaint that's been released about Mr. Tail, he's being subjected to what is undoubtedly a full field investigation by the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force in the Los Angeles area. So they are going to look deeply at everything they can find associated with him. They've already searched his residence. They'll search any other place that's associated with him. They'll look for electronics devices. They'll look for his social media accounts, for his telephone numbers, email accounts, things like that, to find statements and anything that would shed light on what his intent ultimately was. But there are, Kate, a couple of things here that kind of cut against the idea that this guy was some sort of an advanced operational planner.
Tell me what cuts against it.
Well, simply the fact that he was first observed on the golf course, I think on Friday afternoon. He was seen acting suspiciously, taking photographs, videos, had an earpiece in, all the accoutrement, as it were, of a actual security detail person. He then appears again on Sunday at the golf course, and on that day, he actually precipitated the interaction with law enforcement. He approached law enforcement and very readily answered questions. That's not the kind of thing that you would see a terrorist do, or someone who was at the golf course conducting operational surveillance or planning an attack. They would flee. Certainly once they'd already been seen by law enforcement once, they would go out of their way not to be seen again. So that's a little bit odd. He also had false indicators of affiliations with law enforcement. He had fake badges in his car. He had more fake badges in his house. So it's really questionable, I think, this point, whether this guy is a serious threat or whether he is, a disturbed person that was engaged in some activity. Either way, it's got to be investigated. The simple fact that he could present a threat to the president of the United States means you have to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, but you really kind of lay out some of the interesting, complicating contours of what they've uncovered so far. And clearly, they're in the midst of an investigation now, and he will be in court today. Andy, it's great to see you. Thank you so much.